So look put on your phone.
Interested to know the percentage of maybe crimes committed by the government forces versus the opposition and other parties in this conflict. As in many parts of the world, it starts what seems to be a struggle between good and evil, and then we end up a struggle between evil and evil. So, more or less, what's the
Yeah.
percentage of for
Touch it.
crimes committed on both sides?
Well, I couldn't give you exact percentages. What I would say is we receive the evidence.
Can't leave them if you're running. You don't know about that.
We receive much more evidence of crimes committed against civilians by the military than the opposition forces. That's what evidence we have received. We have received cooperation from the NUG government in collecting evidence. They have shared evidence with us, which the military has not done. The side has not done. We've also seen at least some efforts in some of the opposition forces in
Sure,
the
better
NUG
look.
to say that they were investigating crimes that their own forces had committed. We haven't seen that from the military.
Thank you. I think the name is Ras Olara with the newspaper. Just on the numbers, do you have approximate, first of all, about accessibility? I assume that also in your case, you don't have accessibility, just want to go and see by yourself, as in many of these cases in other countries. Am I correct?
That's correct.
But do you have, of course, you still have other ways to report about it. And do you have approximate numbers about how many people are held in these prisons and camps? And also, the other question is about the issue of arms delivery. And you pointed to the fact that many countries in ASEAN want the first point is to end the conflict or stop the violence, but it doesn't seem to translate with, for example, stopping arm delivery. If you could comment on that, and you talked about aerial attacks. Which areas are we talking about? Like against people?
Well, we've seen aerial attacks against all areas where there is fighting in the country, everything from the west to the north to the east. We have very serious attacks, and some of the targets have included temples, schools, on some occasions a music concert. These are targets where obviously there's going to be civilians present, and civilians were the victims of those offenses. We do have some statistics really gathered by others. We collect the evidence on the total number of detentions. I don't have those in front of me. I would just say that it's thousands of people that are in detention, many thousands. The number of those in detention are increasing regularly, and we have more and more reports of torture.
And the arms.
Sorry. Well, that's something that we're looking into because our mandate again is limited to the most serious international crimes. But there has been jurisprudence in other cases, such as when Charles Taylor, the president of Liberia, was convicted of war crimes against humanity in Sierra Leone. He was convicted largely because he provided support to the rebels, including arms. So if people provide support, knowing that this will be aiding a criminal campaign, they can be held responsible. So we have created a financial unit, and one of their objectives will be to collect evidence that might shed light on whether or not individuals or companies are supplying arms knowing that it's going to result in serious international crimes.
Thank you so much. Are there any other questions in the room or online? Okay. If there's nothing else, I'd like to thank Mr. Nicholas for his time. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, everybody.
want to make sure that everybody, okay, very good. I see one, I see two, perfect. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We're very pleased to be joined by the Food and Agriculture Organization Director at the Office of Emergencies and Resilience, Arif Hussein, whom you know very well, and also somebody else that you know very well. We have Rain Paulson, who is the World Food Program's Chief Economist. And this morning they will brief you on the Hunger Hotspots report. And I believe that FAO is going to take the floor first. So Arif, you have the floor. Go ahead.
I think, Rain is, you introduced us differently. So, but no worries, Rain is with FAO.
We work extremely closely. We work extremely closely together. So this is
No problem.
easily.
Very fancy.
Robert, apologies.
Well, not no worries.
See, I had a note that had you
Not very
switched and I
useful.
read. So let me correct. So,
After being
No worries.
all right.
So I'm very happy to kick us off, and thank you for the opportunity to brief together with Arif from the World Food Programme. Our Hunger Hotspots report highlights an early warning for urgent action in 16 hunger hotspots for the outlook period. And this is the period that covers November 2024 through to May next year, May 2025. And it includes 14 countries and 2 regional clusters, which comprise 8 countries. This gives us a total of 22 countries or territories where we are expecting a significant deterioration in levels of acute food insecurity in the coming months. To be clear, unless immediate assistance is provided, millions of people in these hunger hotspots are expected to face a significant deterioration in their food security over the next 6 months when we compare the situation to a year ago. The spread of conflict, particularly in the Middle East, coupled with climate and economic stresses, is pushing millions to the brink. And this Hunger Hotspots report spotlights the regional fallout from the crisis in Gaza, which has also seen Lebanon impacted by conflict. And the report also warns that the La Nina weather pattern risks affecting climates through March 2025, further threatening fragile food systems in vulnerable regions. We've grouped the hunger hotspots in 3 categories, 3 different levels of concern. Of the 16 hunger hotspots, 5 are classified as of the very highest concern. They are the Sudan, Palestine, South Sudan, Haiti, and Mali. And these are contexts in which famine and risk of famine and starvation are either ongoing currently, and I think this is really important to underscore, or where that reality is a major threat. For the second category, I'm in contexts of very high concern. This includes countries such as Chad, Lebanon, Myanmar, Mozambique, Nigeria, the Syrian Arab Republic, and Yemen. These are classified and categorized in as contexts where we have a high number of people facing critical acute food insecurity, and where we also see drivers that are expected to further intensify life-threatening conditions in the coming months. And finally, there's a grouping of the balance of hunger hotspots. It includes places such as Burkina Faso, Ethiopia, Malawi, Somalia, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. And from our last assessment, Kenya, Lesotho, Namibia, and Niger have also been added to the list. The report outlines specific recommendations for actions, both emergency response as well as anticipatory actions to get ahead of new crises emerging or worsening. And I do think we need to just underscore again, early intervention reduces food gaps and protects assets and livelihoods at a much lower cost than having to mount a large-scale humanitarian response after the fact. Let's say a few things quickly about the key drivers. We've talked a bit about geographies. Just to be crystal clear that armed violence and conflict remain the primary cause of acute food insecurity across these numerous hunger hotspots, where widespread displacement, destruction of food systems, reduced humanitarian access, all are likely to worsen food availability and food access. And of course, conflict and instability, as we know, is often compounded then by global economic challenges, disparities, issues such as high debt levels in many of the developing countries and territories listed, which of course undermine governments' abilities to shield, to protect these vulnerable populations. And finally, just to underscore that several of the countries included, for example, Kenya, Lesotho, Namibia, and Niger, have also been included partly due to the climate extremes that we are anticipating in the context of the La Nina phenomenon. Let me, before I hand over to Arif, who I know is going to dive into a few specific contexts, just say a couple of words quickly about two specific areas, Sudan and Haiti. For Sudan, colleagues, time is running out to save lives. That has to be the headline message. People are facing total collapse of livelihoods and starvation in areas where conflict is hitting the hardest across the country, including in Darfur, in Jazeera, in Khartoum, and in Kordofan. Unfortunately, the conflict is likely to expand further in Sudan during the ad-hoc period. This is what the projections indicate. And famine levels of acute food insecurity are already reported in the Zamzam camp for internally displaced people. That camp alone, by the way, is home to several hundred thousand refugees South Sudan and Chad, also contexts where existing food prices are being further deepened. And then on Haiti, to say that the risk that we previously flagged, that pockets of the population would have been slipping deeper into hunger, is now tragically becoming a reality. And immediate action is imperative to save lives, to prevent starvation, and to help vulnerable populations restore their livelihoods amidst unprecedented environment and displacement. We have these pockets of catastrophe, as it's technically classified, IPC Phase 5, in areas of metropolitan Port-au-Prince between August 2024 and June 2025. But indeed, expanding levels of violence even outside of the capital into parts of the country, such as the Artibonite, are of deep concern. I'm going to hand over to Arif, but let me just acknowledge, as I do that, the efforts of the Global Network Against Food Crisis, of which both FAO and WFP are proud members. This report is a part of a series of analytical products produced by the Global Network, which really are developed to contribute to our shared understanding of food crises and to help us with the right information to address those situations collectively. But with that, let me hand over to Arif for further attention to different parts of the report.
Thank you, Rain. Hi, everybody. I just pick up from where Rain stopped. First, like in terms of the drivers, of the 22 countries in which this report has occurred, or which where there is analysis done for this report, 14 main driver is conflict. 16 main driver is climate extremes, and 19 main driver is economic. So out of 22, that means that most of these places are not hit by just one; they are hit by everything. So you have conflict impacted, climate impacting the same countries, as well as both the combination of the two turns into economic devastation for people. Then the second thing which you see is the regional implication. So these things, whether you talk about Sudan, displacement out of Sudan because of the conflict there, that impacts Chad, that impacts South Sudan. That means people moving into South Sudan, into Chad, into Ethiopia, and these are also very poor countries. It is a pressure on people who are already poor in the other countries. It is pressure on prices. It is pressure on cost of living, on livelihoods. Go to Middle East, you see the same thing. What is happening in Gaza, what is happening in Lebanon. It has also implications for the region. For example, through Red Sea, through Suez Canal, which means the prices for everybody else also go up. So these things, they are terrible within themselves, but they also have severe regional implications for the rest of the neighborhoods, or even for the world for that matter. Now, in this report, I think if I can say, the most intense, the most terrible situation which is reported is in Gaza. Why? It is not the biggest number, but it is 91% of the population of Gaza is in crisis or worst level of food insecurity. And I think this is over a year, this number hasn't come down more than a year. That is something which, just to break that down even further, I guess there are about 876,000, 41% of the population in emergency level. And it has a state 41%. And then you have about 16% of the population projected to be influenced by catastrophic hunger. And the report says basically that there is a risk, persistent risk of famine for the entire Gaza Strip. Displacements over there, 1.9 million people displaced so far. That's what the report says, many multiple times. That is about 90% plus of the population that's displaced, particularly in the north. If we can talk about the economy of Gaza, it says it is contracted to just about 1/6 in just over a year. Loss of life, destruction of infrastructure, displacement of people, not enough humanitarian assistance coming in, and all of these things combined over time show devastation which we see every single day. This is happening over there in terms of suffering. I think these are the things which this report is highlighting when it comes to Gaza. And the solutions obviously are pretty straightforward into this conflict. Access to humanitarian assistance on a regular, safe basis for people who are so such desperate. Then we move to, from here, we move to the other bigger one, this one, which is Sudan, where you have over 21 million IPC phase 3 and above. The people in famine, like Ryan said, Zamzam camp, big number over there, almost a million. And there are over 11 million displacements of people in Chad, Sudan, South Sudan. Here again, access is a very big issue in terms of providing assistance to these people. By the way, the report which I'm talking about in terms of the IPC, the last IPC report that was 2 months ago, which Zamzam camp and places like that. But still, there's not enough access. Still, there's not enough humanitarian assistance coming in. And people are paying a silent price for that. A lot of them are paying a silent price for that. Then we go to South Sudan. There again, combination of Sudan, floods, this general economic population is impacted in big numbers. And then we get into Haiti, different continent, but again, conflict. 2 million people, crisis, about 6,000 people, catastrophic type of food insecurity. So this is essentially the I left out one. This is the fifth one of the highest concern. Here about 2,000 latest information says about 2,500 people legacy phase 5 catastrophic levels of hunger. And about 121,000 people in legacy phase 4. It's a small country. Things have changed since more conflict, there's more instability. about South Sudan. It's one example of a country which is impacted by multiple things, including weather, like I said, flooding. Then you go a little bit outside, you go to Southern Africa because of the Nina. Now, like Zambia, Zimbabwe, they're going to be affected. So how much they will be affected, we don't know yet because it's just the start of the movement, but we have to keep an eye on it. So I think I will stop here. This is kind of like the thing I encourage everybody to read the report, details on these countries and what are the issues, but also what needs to happen over there. It's for and the best part about this report is that it's not necessarily backward looking, it is forward looking. I'll stop here.
Thank you so much to both of you. Let us now open the floor to questions. I will start with Evie Ledger.
Thank you both very much for doing this briefing on behalf of the United Nations Correspondents Association. Welcome again. My name is Edith Lederer from the Associated Press. You painted a very grim picture with conflict, climate, and economic marginalization as the three main factors. With the donations to humanitarian efforts going down significantly, is there any bright spot or hope in the next 6 months, even that the next report that you do might paint a better picture? Thank you.
Should I take this?
You
Okay.
can? Yeah.
Thank you for the question. I think this is glancing into it first in terms of the relationship. For humanitarian work to work, for us to save lives, basically, you always need two things. You need access, safe access to people who are in need of assistance. And you need resources in order to provide that assistance. So if you have all the access you want, but no resources, it doesn't work. But if you have all the resources but no access, it still doesn't work. So you need the combination of the two. And right now we are seeing both playing out. In Gaza, it is a more issue of access. In other places also, in Sudan, it is a combination of money and access. So that's and if we are going to sort this out, if we are going to save lives, you need to make sure that both of them are there. The other thing, I think your question in terms of is very, very important. When will we see good news coming up? And the answer to that is as soon as we can solve some of the structural reasons which are causing this level of destitution. The problem is that if I am affected because there is a war, and the war continues, why would I not be, if I was affected today, why wouldn't I be affected tomorrow as well? I am. So if you want to get me out of this, you need to stop the war. Same thing with climate. Right now there are globally almost 120 million people are displaced. Main causes war, but more and more climate. So unless we sort out climate issues, these problems are not going to go away. So on one side we need to save lives. On the other side we need to deal with the structural reasons, the root causes, and those are often political. I'll stop here.
Go ahead, Rain, if you
I
want
wonder
to
if I
add.
can maybe add. Thank you. If I can maybe add two comments
on to the really clear responses that's provided. I mean, one of the services that we provide through this report is also to outline actions that we know will be impactful, and we know they will be impactful because of tried and tested experience over years and over decades in these settings. And so, for example, the anticipatory actions that are proposed against each of the hotspots, those are activities that can be put in place before the worst effects of different parts of the manifestation of disaster. And again, here, this it's not all about financing for the reasons that Arif mentioned, but some of it is about the right type of flexible financing at the right time. If we know, as we do, that the La Nina phenomenon will have an impact on a number of countries between now and maybe next year, we also know the types of interventions that are going to prevent loss of assets and prevent acute food insecurity. And so the good news is that on some of these things, the choice is very much in our hands, which is why this advocacy tool, I think, is so important. So that would be one comment. The second comment I'd make is even in the most desperate situations, and Arif has mentioned the need for political solutions, and obviously those solutions don't come from the World Food Programme and the Food and Agriculture Organization, but they need to come from somewhere, and they need to come because there is nothing inevitable about famine. Famine is entirely man-made, human-created. We know that this is a prerequisite to food security, and the right to food is a basic human right. But even with some of, I think, the really sobering projections and analysis that's put forward, we need to just remind ourselves again that solutions exist, and actions can be taken. Some of those at the political level, importantly, some of those at the more technical level. But we hope that these types of products are a call to action rather than just a sober reminder of how bad a situation is. And that's why the recommendations around both anticipatory action and response actions and some of the specific requests are put forward in this report. And we really hope that people respond to those proposals.
Thank you. My name is Ibtisam Azim, Al Arabi Jadid newspaper. I have the
Can't hear you well.
Oh, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
The volume is a bit low, but I can hear you. But go ahead. I think we can.
Yeah. Now, what about now?
Okay.
Okay. My name is Ibtisam Azim, Al Arabi Al Jadid newspaper. I have first two follow-ups. You talked about 91 in Gaza. 91% are in crisis regarding food insecurity, and then also about more than 800,000 are in emergency levels. Could you clarify these terms and explain them in a way that we can also, what does that mean for daily life for people? And then the other issue, whether you are given the fact that settlers are attacking in the West Bank, are attacking a lot of farmland, not only all of land, but others. Do you see there also some pockets of food insecurity? And the last thing about, you said that this general question, you said that this report is looking forward. Could you explain that? What do you mean by that? Thank you. I got you right.
All right, I can start. So basically, we as analysts, what we do is look at the food security situation in a country, something which is called the IPC process, Integrated Food Classification, which is about 21 partners, both technical partners, UN agencies, non-UN agencies, donors, who come together to analyze the data and of find out what is the food security situation in a country. And through this analysis, what they do is they put populations in 5 different areas, meaning IPC phase 1, which is kind of like everything's okay, IPC phase 2, which means basically that some people may be stressed, and then comes IPC phase 3, which by name crisis. And then the fourth one becomes IPC phase 4, which is people are in emergency level of food insecurity, emergency levels of hunger. And then the last stop is that people have reached the famine level, catastrophic level of hunger. Now, how this is done in terms of putting people in these categories by looking at three things. One, their consumption of food. They have enough to eat. Two, their nutrition situation. Are children okay? Are they listed? Are they stunted? Are they in for their height? And using indicators for that. And then the third thing is to look at the mortality. What is the mortality rate, if you will, which is hunger, not water. So there's this big framework, technical framework, through which all of these things are looked at through the data which is available, plus by these countries. And this happens in about 40 countries through IPC and through something else called country. So that's really that's it. Now you asked about how situation is. We all know in Gaza. Like I said, projection now is 91% of the population in crisis of hunger or worse, and what is happening in West Bank is also doubling of, not quite doubling of the level of security. Meaning before the war, there were about 350,000 people who were food insecure. Right now, that number is over 600,000. So is there an impact of that? Yes, there is an impact on food security as well. And on your last question, basically, what does it mean forward looking? It's that basically how we expect things to change. For example, if the war continues, how many more people are affected? If the displacements continue, what will be the impact of that? And these are things or based on assumptions, basically same thing. The other thing that if there is a strong learning that in terms of on crops, for example, both in some places where there may be more flooding, but also in places where there may be droughts. So these are the things which we look at, come up with this issue, with the analysis, which then decision makers and politicians and others can use to see which are the places where and what is it that we need to do. So it's almost like a forward-looking early warning of what to expect, given what we are seeing right now. So,
Rain, you want to add something?
I mean, we've just given a response.
I have
Sam,
just
and then
just a quick follow-up whether you're seeing mortality related deaths in hunger related in Gaza. Thank you.
I think basically what we are seeing is mortality capture hunger-related mortality is very, very difficult. But what we are certainly seeing is that there is absolute devastation when it comes to that. I mean, just looking at the key numbers, we are bringing in, like last month we brought in, this month we brought in only 20% of what is in. So 1/5 is coming in. So the coping capacity is off these communities, so these people are totally gone. That should tell you that
Let me go to Deji.
Yes, Srinaji with China Central Television. About a week ago, the British Prime Minister Stammer, according to report, accused Russia of disrupting food supplies to Gaza because it stepped up with its attacks on Ukrainian ports. I just want to ask two experts, how much does the Ukrainian crisis affect the food situation in Gaza? In what extent? And there's also reports that WFP vessels has been delayed because of Russia's military action in Black Sea. Is that true? Thank you.
For me, I mean, what is really important is that we have to realize that Russia major exporters of three major commodities, right? It's wheat, it's corn, it's sunflower oil. We're talking about almost 30% of global exports coming from this region, right? So whatever happens over there in terms of disruption to supply or disruption to production has an impact. And that impact is not only one place, it is an impact all over the place. Why? Because also, if you look at the number of countries which are major exporters of these commodities, it's very small. Like less than 10 countries make like 70% of our total exports of wheat, total exports of corn, total exports of rice, total exports of soya. Right? So when something happens to any one of these countries, it has a major impact. So imagine that if the infrastructure of a major exporter or producer of grain is being impacted, it will have immediate consequences, but more so it will have longer term consequences.
But more specific for Gaza, what would be the effect?
Well, Gaza is a very small country. I mean, you're talking about 2 million. So this is a very big problem. It's way beyond just 2 million. You understand what I mean? So it has an impact on it has an impact on places which will import, which were imported from the Red Sea area, from the Black Sea area. But it is beyond just Gaza.
Thank you. Anything to add from FAO?
To say, if you have a chance to read the details in the report, you'll see the analysis that's provided around the different contexts. And just to say that for Gaza in particular, we look at what's happened to agricultural infrastructure, to productive assets since the beginning of the conflict, October last year. There's been a huge impact on the ability to locally produce food. So, for example, 68% of agricultural land in the Gaza Strip area has been directly impacted in terms of livestock and animals. Loss all of this impacts, of course, the food security of people is driving the numbers of the analysis. So again, there's a reason why this is one of the hotspots of the very highest concern.
But let me just have a follow up. So what is the major problem now for Gaza food crisis? Is that the access problem or the supply problem?
So it is access to people problem. It is an entry of humanitarian assistance, food, medicine, water, inadequate levels so people can receive what they require. That is the problem. So it's not only it is not external availability. It is actually distribution of all that needs to go into Gaza. That's what is happening.
Question from Gabriel.
Thank you, Gabriel Zondo from Al Jazeera English. Thank you for the briefing, very informative briefing. I want to just follow up on my colleague Ibtisam's question about what these different IPCs mean. We get briefings all the time about different IPC levels, particularly in Gaza the last year. My question to you is, in phase 5, are people that are suffering through phase 5 at risk of dying from hunger?
Absolutely. Phase 5, by definition, is famine, catastrophe.
And
That's past the point of that's it doesn't go any worse than that. You're done.
and
Right?
sure. And is it does that mean that people in phase 5 are at risk of immediate? Does that mean that people in phase 5 are starving to death?
Yeah, this is like 345,000 people we're talking about who are in phase 5.
In Gaza?
So are they dead? No. But they are as close to death that you can get. That's where they are.
Okay,
We don't call it a famine. Why? Because we call it that they are in risk of famine, because famine, in order to call a famine, classify a famine, you need 3 conditions to come together. Okay? First condition is that in any given place where there are 10,000 people or more, 20% of the population must be starving. This is like IPC phase 5, must be starving. Okay? Number 1. Number 2, 30% of the children must be wasted. You know, have you seen kids with, who are so bony that the skin is hanging kind of thing? That's wasted. Okay? So 30% of children in that place must be wasted. The third condition is that the mortality rate, non-trauma, not war-related, non-trauma mortality rate must be doubled. Beginning in adults, instead of 1 per 10,000 per day, it should be more than 2 per 10,000 per day. And for children, instead of 2 per 10,000 per day, it should be 4 per 10,000 per day. When these 3 conditions come together, we say it's a famine. So famine is not when you say, it's a famine, let's work to avert it. Of course, we need to do that. But we need to work so we don't get to that level, because people are already suffering as badly as they are. And unfortunately, this is what this report shows, that there are people in this condition in several places, including Sudan.
And thank you. If I can just ask a couple quick follow-ups. Thanks for that clarification and that explanation. In Gaza, you said 41% of the population, or 876,000 people, are in stage 4, emergency level of food insecurity. Emergency means something to you, but that word means something to others outside of this building. If I go to dinner and someone asks me, how are people in Gaza? And I say, well, 41% are in emergency levels of hunger. People that don't work at the UN are going to say, well, what does that mean? Are they starving? What's your answer? You could.
Yeah. So the answer is, again, when you look at the food security side, yeah, they are skipping meals. Yes, they are starving. Yes, they have sold their stuff, and they are one stop before famine. Okay. That's on the just the food side, right? Then you look at nutrition. You say, you know what? It's not 30%, but it is over 15%. What we call the GAM, right? Basically, it's saying that wasted children, they're not 30% of the children wasted, but about over 15%, more than the emergency rate. So that's also pretty bad. And then you're seeing more like maybe you don't know exact mortality, but you're of non-trauma mortality or hunger-related mortality, but you're seeing there are more people weak, there are more immune systems weak, there are more people getting sick, not just because they don't have enough food, so their immune systems are lower, and then they have to deal with things like ingestion, things like no clean water, things like not enough medicine. Those are the things which put you in emergency, which is IPC phase 4. So it's like a gradual scale on these 3 things. You don't have enough to eat. What is the gradual scale of that? Your children, they get weaker and weaker and weaker, and people dying from hunger-related causes starts to grow. And through this methodology, we are just able to put them in different categories. words, I guess. Like, oh, this is last stop before famine. So many people are in emergency. That's the purpose.
And,
If I could,
yeah,
Children.
go ahead in
No,
conclusion, yes.
just on this, I mean, I think as Aretha's been saying, I mean, we use technical classifications for the work that we do, and I think you're right that it's important to find the right way to communicate these things. But, when we talk about emergency and IPC phase 4, people are facing extreme food shortages. Acute malnutrition disease levels are excessively high. The risk of hunger-related death is rapidly increasing. And then you have to quantify these things. But those really are the headline messages. This is a very, very desperate situation.
On this sober note, we will wrap up this briefing. There's another briefing that is starting right away, but just so I can correct the record and get your names and title right. Abdelhamid.
I have a question.
I didn't see you. We need to wrap up because there's another briefing that is starting now. If you can squeeze it in very quickly. Can you?
Oh, thank you. To be brief, Mr. Hussain and Mr. Olsen. We have been receiving all these briefing about the situation in Gaza from WFP, WHO, OCHA, UNRWA, and the symptoms are the same. So, and when we ask about what is going on, is Israel committing genocide or not, we don't receive clear-cut answer. Why?
For me, look, I mean, I've said this before. We are not politicians, right? We are technical agencies. Our job is to provide the information to the best of our ability, to the best of our knowledge, in the clearest way possible. We are not lawyers who are going to say, whether it is a genocide or not, but there are others who can speak to that. But our job is to provide evidence of what is going on the ground. We take that job very, very seriously. Rest is not up to us.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, so we had today, thank you so much to our two guests. We had Arif Hussain, who is the Chief Economist at the World Food Program, and Wayne Paulson, who is the Director of the Food and Agriculture Organization Office of Emergencies and Resilience. And sorry for inverting your titles earlier. Thank you so much for joining us. The report is online. It's called the Hunger Hotspots Report. It is online available. Thank you so much. And please stay on because immediately there's starting with our human rights watch and Laura.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for joining us at this press conference with the UN Commission of Inquiry on Ukraine. As you may know, the commission was created by the Human Rights Council in March of 2022 to investigate human rights violations in the context of the aggression against Ukraine by the Russian Federation. They presented their latest report to the General Assembly on Tuesday, and we're pleased to have with us today all three members of the commission who wanted to take this opportunity to meet with you and take your questions. In the middle, we have the chair of the commission, Mr. Eric Norsay. To his right is Mr. Pablo de Grave. And on the far left is Ms. Brenda Grover. Now, the chair will begin with some opening remarks, followed by fellow commissioners, and then we'll take the questions.
Good morning. We are here to share with